just one more minute and we will make a start. If nothing else, we'd like to start nearly on time, just waiting for everybody else to join. Thank you. Well, we're just coming up to the 2 minutes past, so we've given people a little bit of extra time to get in, so we might as well, I think, make a start.
All right, thank you, Carl. Welcome everyone to this exclusive webinar for Infor LNXA and System 21 users. Some of you may be attending this for a second time, as we've also presented this at the Empower event recently. Just a little bit of housekeeping. You are all muted. The session is being recorded, so you'll get access to that afterwards and you'll be able to share that. If you do have questions as they come up, please could you submit those through the Q&A panel. If you're not quite sure where that is, if you mouse over the Zoom control, you'll get a menu at the bottom and there's a Q&A button. Click on that and then you can enter the question. We'll do our best to answer those questions as we go, or perhaps more likely at the end. So I'm Tim Bauer, Senior Solution Consultant at Original Software. A long history in the IBM I space. In fact, it was called an AS400 when I started. We've also got on the call Carl Andrews, who is based here in the UK. And we have John McKillop, who is based in the East Coast of the US.
Thank you, Tim. Cheers. So some of you might remember mine and John's faces from the event a couple of weeks ago, and obviously Tim's a new face, as he said, one of our technical consultants, man and boy in the IBM I space and Infor space. So really, again, a rerun of what we presented 2 weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago now at the Empower event. So those that didn't see it, going to get to see it, and also I know there's some people that are probably seeing it again for the second time, so thank you again for coming along. So a little bit about ourselves, Original Software. Been in business for over 25 years, and where did we start? We started back in that IBM I space, the wonderful green screen that some of us still use, know and love, and we've been working with many Infor customers now for in excess of 10 years across all Infor platforms. Started originally in that sort of in the M3 environment, and then branched out into obviously all the many different applications now, part of the Infor family. We are part of the Infor marketplace. Again, great place to go and have a look for other solutions, things that might add value to what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And where we're sort of, I'll say, unique is in that end-to-end application testing space. And what do we mean by end-to-end? Take it from a CRM all the way through into a finance package, and in the middle of that might be Infor. And being agnostic means that we work across all technology, and again, another sort of unique point to ourselves, it's code free, and we'll touch on that, why that's a big difference as we go through the presentation. So again, why is there all this change in our digital space? Well, we're wanting to integrate all our applications. We're wanting all our applications to talk to each other. We want to leverage those benefits of all of that. We may have on-premise applications. We may have cloud solutions. The benefit there is we're trying to integrate those. Some will be updating on a monthly basis, a quarterly basis, half-yearly basis. Some might not be updating at all. But obviously where there's that change, where there's a risk of something happening in our organizations. We spoke to many people at the Empower event, as I'm sure everybody did on here, and that, and a lot of the questions were around moving and upgrading to version 10, the introduction of Netlink, or some people are already using it. Some people are still using green screen and Netlink. What does that mean, and how are we going to be able to, test over that environment? And ultimately, the world of Infor CloudSuite, it's some way off, but obviously there's a lot of change coming into the LX, XA, and 21 environments. And for me, the picture there, I love the picture because it's almost back to 20 years ago. We've done an update. We think we've done some testing. John's told me that he's tested it. I've ticked it off. It's done. And we put it into production, and it still fails. So again, about addressing robust testing strategies within our organizations. And again, where is it all coming from? That testing demand. So again, from Global Market Insights, they're forecasting the testing space to significantly increase. And not surprisingly, in a couple of key areas, the integration, just mentioned about integration testing. We want all our applications to be able to communicate and talk to each other. So it makes sense that, there's a growing need for integration testing. And the other one on there, the green bar, regression testing. John will cover what we mean by regression testing shortly. And regression testing, really being able to identify what's changed easily and quickly prior to putting that into our production environments. So if you're quick enough in the chat, what does that number mean? It's a very big number, lots of zeros. At $2.4 trillion. So according to the Consortium of Information and Software Quality, that very small number on the screen of $2.4 trillion is the cost of poor software quality for 2022, just for the USA. And 75% of that down to operational software failures. And there's many public failures out there, and just some of those, some probably remember the Google or Alphabet shares taking a nosedive earlier this year when Google introduced their chatbot. They asked it a question live and it got the question wrong, and overnight, it was 100 billion wiped off their market capital. If you look now, they've recovered, their share price has recovered. TSB in the middle at the bottom, Trustee Savings Bank in the UK. Back in, I think it was 2018, people couldn't access their bank accounts. Some customers saw details of other customers after an update had been run, and obviously it failed. Cost the bank £400 million, so just over $300 million. CIO, guess what? No longer working for the TSB, and in the last 12 months, the CIO has been personally fined £80,000 for his involvement in that. And if you look back and read all about that, why, what was the root cause? And the root cause being their third party in testing not being suitable and up to what was expected for that change. So we talk about Infor, we talk about XA, LX, and System 21 at typically at the hub of what we do in our businesses. as we look forward as well, it's more than just Infor. I think the average number of applications in organizations globally is over 100 core business applications. People are moving more and more to the cloud. There'll be a big mix of on-premise, of cloud solutions. Certainly on the CloudSuite side of it, monthly patches, quarterly updates, half yearly major releases. Each one of those is a ripple. Take the example of Salesforce on there. People may use that already as their CRM. Again, that sort of monthly patches, quarterly releases, another ripple. So the frequency of change is increasing, and really, what do we do, and how should we manage that? And our answer to that is we introduce robust testing, predictable testing into what we do on a day-by-day basis. So John's going to take us through now some of those different types of testing, the language associated with that. So I'll hand over to John.
Thanks, Carl. Yeah, it sounds really simple, right? How do you not become part of the 2.4 billion and you just use testing, right? So it sounds simple, but what we
John,
John,
it's even bigger than billions. It's trillions.
Trillions, yeah.
yeah.
I couldn't even fathom the trillions.
Yeah.
But fortunately, where we can help is throughout many types or parts of the testing journey here. So what we're going to go through is a few different types and areas where we can help you guys test updates and upgrades, especially on XA, LX, and System 21. So first, we have user acceptance testing, right? Really important to get the users involved and validate your tests and your business processes to make sure they're still working. We'll go over some true regression, how to reach true regression, and what you need to leverage to actually perform true regression testing. Functional testing, test management, so just getting that visibility and scheduling into your test cycles, knowing what has been completed, what's passed, what's failed, really speeding up the entire testing journey there and getting you that handle and control over your testing cycles. And then the IBMI test data management will be the last piece we cover today. But where we're going to start, I guess, is a good place to get it, but it's obviously going to be the last test, which we think is pretty funny. So starting with the last test, and what I mean by that is what some people call probably the most important, and that's UAT. So UAT is really great for the reasons you see on the screen here. You're getting business validation of the requirements of what your system's actually doing and what your users are actually testing and doing day to day. You're getting those real world scenarios with UAT testing, making sure the day-to-day business is still going to run after your update or upgrade. You're getting the end users involved, so they have the knowledge of what your business processes are. So you really need to leverage that knowledge, know that everything's going to work while you're getting those UAT cycles going. Bridging the gap again along the same lines, bridging the gap with the end users and the IT team, making sure those day-to-day functionalities are running and they're not going to break when you go to the next version. And then finally getting that validation in the sign off or the go and just the acceptance of the users. They know that their day-to-day jobs won't be affected. They did the testing and you got that validation. Unfortunately, UAT, it's the biggest feedback we get. It comes with a huge struggle, and that's actually getting the users to do it, right? So making sure those users are doing the testing. It's one thing to say that they've done it or actually just passed something. So what we provide is a purpose-built UAT solution that's going to make it easier for them to do the tests, really just focus on the processes that they know. And what we provide is some automation in the background where we're capturing what the tests are, giving you guys the confidence in the evidence that they've actually tested everything, and easy workflows, which makes it easier to actually involve the UAT users, and you don't get users not doing testing and skipping the testing and just saying that they've done it. So UAT, that's where we can help. The next portion here is going to be a little bit of a game that we like to play. We call it regression testing. The testing space calls it regression testing, but we also like to call it spot the difference, right? So just actually knowing what has changed when you're making an update and easily being able to point out the changes is something that we can cover in regression. And we're going to do a little bit of an exercise right now. So Carl's going to put up a picture. I'm going to give you 3 seconds and see how many differences you can see on the left versus the right picture. 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. So we do this game a lot. Most people will get 1 or 2, maybe 3 if you're an all-star. But it turns out there's actually 10 differences on here. So we like to, compare this or use it as an analogy for regression testing. The only way to really spot the difference with a version upgrade or a change that you've made is to leverage some automation in this process, especially with regression testing. So you see there's 10 differences over there on the right. Manually, you're probably grabbing, like I said, 1 or 2, depending on how much time you want to dedicate and to really dig into the picture. So when you have something like this on the right that can actually just circle them, bring them to your attention, it's a lot easier, right? So that's kind of the theme that when we get into regression testing, or the next slide, and the different benefits of it, leveraging automation is key. So again, when you're talking about regression testing, the purpose is really just to test everything. You're going from one version or you're making a change, you need to make sure those core business processes are working. And when you're scoping it out, the scope of it should be that you want to test everything and scope all of your core business processes and making sure those aren't broken. And the only way to really do that and reach the true regression part of it, like I mentioned before, is to leverage an automation solution. So one that we have is just to make it easy for companies and organizations to easily create automation, but it builds up your regression suite and your regression testing cycles where you are testing all of your core processes automatically. And it's almost exactly like that Spot the Difference, is where you can set up your regression testing. You can make the change, whether you're going from XA, version 10 upgrades is what we see the most right now. You're going to version 10 and you can come in, run your automation tests. And you can actually see what we've pointed out as the differences in version 10, and you can start investigating them, whether they're going to cause any problems, whether you need to mitigate them. And that's how you're going to move forward to that last piece there, where you run your full true regression tests, you leverage automation for it, and you have the confidence to sign off and say we can go live, because you've tested everything, and you've not done the more of the risk-based testing where you're just testing what you think is going to break. That's another big feedback that we get from our customers. You test everything you thought was going to break, and the one that bites you is something that you didn't expect, another application down the road. And that's what automated true regression testing is really going to get for you guys, and where we're going to kind of bring you guys with the solution. And just to show you an example here, this is how it works. So this is a green screen example. It's something you can run automation over, and we're going to point out just something as simple as a name search field has switched locations. So that could break your process. And what it won't do is break our automation. So when you go in and you try to investigate, that notification that you get, you can see it was just the name search field. Go on with your testing and know that everything would still work once you've leveraged that automation. And then the next example is similar, but it's just in kind of the GUI application. I think this is SAP, but it's going to point out, something as simple as an order amount. The total price isn't adding up in your process correctly, whether it's the quantities or the unit pricing, but it's something that you can automatically flag, bring it to your attention, that you might have missed before, and you can investigate it, fix it as needed. And you're going to be able just to see these type of mistakes quickly, accurately, and make sure you're testing every piece of that process and in all of your test cases there.
Yeah, I think you sort of touched on it before. Other testing, you might tell it what to test. So I might write an assertion for that individual element of testing the total price. But what happens if the unit price has changed? What happens if something's spelled differently actually on the screen? So there could be 1 or 10,000 different changes that could happen on that screen. And that when we talk about that true regression, it's truly looking for any change.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's regression. So we kind of went through UAT, how our platform really makes it easy for UAT users to get involved and gives you that business validation. The regression testing, leveraging automation, so you get that true regression testing. And one of the last pieces is just the IBMI test data management. So we have some functionality around database testing and testing that database, making sure everything's true. And when you're bringing in that test data, you're accurately testing the right things. And then creating and managing test data, just making sure it's easy for you guys to bring in. We have the batch process testing, data privacy. So if you are using production data, we have ways of masking that test data so you can use that data in your tests. but you are adhering to regulations, whether it's GDPR or anything you have here in the US. And then also for the IBMI, we can leverage the automation as well. So we can leverage automation testing there. And so we have just to kind of bring it together, the UAT piece, the regression automation, and then the IBMI test data management are 3 pillars of what we can offer you guys. I think we'll flip it back over to Carl to take you through the journey here.
Yeah, thanks, John. So really, what does the platform look like? How does it help us as we go through that whole testing journey that John's touched on there, from a test management, UAT, regression. Remember, spot the difference from that point of view. So really, what does it all look like from a whole holistic view? I've got X amount of tests that I need to, we need to do as a business. Could be, by project, by particular program, by an upgrade, doesn't matter. Obviously, dashboards are customizable, but at that top level, what do we need to test? When do we need to test? What's passed? What's failed? And then helping us to drive the behaviors as well in the business of what I've got to do, when have I got to do it. So for me, now I'm the tester, my work to list, I get notifications, I've got a work to list, I know what I've got to do, when I've got to do it. And guess what, if I've not done it and it's late, it'll appear on the dashboard as well. Again, so it starts to really drive the right behaviors in the organization to perform the testing. And again, as we start to sort of drill through here, we've got a number of test plans. We can see straight away green and red, and you probably don't need to know what's passed and what's failed, because that's exactly that, green and red. So we can see which test plans have failed, which is drawing our attention to it. It's taking our attention to it, which takes me to that point of failure really quickly. In the same example here again with the, in this case, John mentioned it wouldn't fail the test from running, because with some of the self-healing in the software, from a user perspective, you'd know that field has changed. You'd continue to perform that test. We know that the field has changed, so it will identify and flag to us that field has changed, ready for us to make ready for you to make a decision to accept it or reject it. If you're going to accept it, and this is part of the maintenance piece as well, it's a simple right mouse click to re-baseline that script. And if that script is used in 5,000 locations, it will re-baseline it in all of those locations. So again, that maintenance piece has to be simple, has to be quick in managing all of our test scenarios. So what we showed previously and what we're going to show again is literally a sort of a minute now of the application running over various applications. I'm just going to go and flick to it, and let me know if you can see it, John.
Yep.
Cool. So literally a 1-minute video, and we've got some swear words on there already with SAP, but they're ECC, so on-premise. Everything we're doing now, transactions, you can see down the right-hand side, it's recording the screen, it's recording the script, it's recording every single transaction as we go through. So interestingly, now we're going into same script, same test. We've now jumped into a web-based interface, so we're talking about that sort of end-to-end capability. We're going from on-premise to web, into the beautiful green screen. So simple, and that down the right hand side you can see all of that has been captured, everything from the on-premise to the web to the green screen in a single application. So what we're doing now is, if something's passed or something's failed, or we want to draw attention to the user, you can annotate the test script to draw people's attention to it. It might be that it's failed and I want to raise a non-conformance and I want to draw the attention to that particular area. Not a problem. And once we've captured everything, what we've got now is the ability to be able to output that into, in this example here, we're outputting into Word. It outputs it into a video at the moment, but Word, PDF, and video format. And interestingly, speaking to people at the event then, oh, can I document my business processes? Absolutely. Because as part of the testing that we're doing, we're testing over our business processes, and output of what we've just tested is every single step, every single transaction. So what we see now is many of our customers using the output as going into their learning management system. I'm just about to pause this video shortly. You can see now that it's just running through everything that we just captured. I'm just going to pause that. So a lot of people use that from outputting it, putting it into their own learning management system, documenting their business processes, but also in some environments in warehouse where might have a higher turnover of personnel. They then use that documentation or short video for onboarding new personnel. How to go and book something out of stock to ready to ship. Well, actually, we've got a short video for that because we test over that scenario as well, and we now use that video to help onboard people. So, yeah, we spoke to a few companies 2 weeks ago that are regulated by the FDA, so the Food and Drug Administration. And with any software change, we have to demonstrate it, we have to audit it. There may be some challenges historically in demonstrating that auditability and traceability. There isn't any more from that point of view. We're upgrading to a different version. We've captured all that evidence, that traceability, and therefore we've validated that change and we're ready to go. Again, which meets those sort of requirements from a software validation perspective, obviously in line with the FDA.
Yeah, 1.2. I was going to bring up Carl here. Is just
go for it.
A lot of good feedback from customers on that knowledge base that we can create. So whether it's XA or Oracle or whatever system you have, creating that central hub of just videos and documentation for each process. For a few teams, they've said it's cut down a ton of time of people just coming to them because they're the XA experts of how does this work or what do I do for this process. And everybody's just pointed to that self-service knowledge base where they can watch videos and go through the documents and learn those processes basically at their own time or from their own effort, which is good. So it cuts down on tickets or just servicing time.
Indeed. Yeah. Cheers, John. So just a couple of customer stories. So VIP, Vermont Information Processing, been a customer for many, many years. And originally it took them, weeks for testing. The bigger frustration they had is it took them days and days to get access to new databases. They had to go to the database administrator to get all that done. And then since moving over, gosh, must be about 10 years ago now with the IBMI, and they still use it. We all know that functionally it works. It does what exactly it says on the tin. They've gone from testing in weeks down to a small number of hours. Valmet, big M3, Infor M3 customer across 6 countries, in excess of a 4,000 hour saving, and that was predominantly just with UAT. They're now going to start to see much more of a saving as they progress the sort of breadth and depth of their testing using automation. And then Saint-Gobain, actually in North America, they weekly regression test now over SAP. So again, a mix of different technologies. We're agnostic across technology. Weekly regression test across SAP, and they've prevented 3 major instances from going live into their production environment in these last 12 months. So nice image. In the US, takeouts. In the UK, takeaways. So these are the takeouts and takeaways from this short presentation. Let's not be part of that $2.4 trillion software quality issues. There's things that we can do today and prepare ourselves for the future that will mitigate that risk. And a lot of people we've spoken to about, starting to use NetLink, going into a web browser, a little bit more change, upgrades for, to version 10. It's not just about that one-time migration. because we know we're going to be getting a little bit more frequency of change in the environment. So it's being prepared to test everything all of the time, and not just, it's not just here for today, it's not just here for the migration, it's here to stay. And as we started with the first test or the last test, which is often that first opportunity we get to test that change, and that test being user acceptance testing and the regression testing, that spot the difference. Can we find things very, very quickly? Can we be taken to that point of difference, change very quickly? Again, reducing that time and effort that we have to spend and that we should be spending on testing. And there'll be certain things that we test today. How do we truly start to de-risk? We know we have to increase the breadth and depth of testing that we do, and John talked about the automation. Our landscapes, are becoming more integrated. What's one change on one application? What's the impact upstream and downstream? So that end-to-end agnostic capability from green screen to web becomes super, super critical. And often with a change, one of the first questions the CFO will ask is, has it broken my order to cash or my procure to pay process? And I'm sure there's people on the call that have been asked that very question. And yes, we can, you can employ more people, acquire those skills. We know that the skills across, consultancy and knowledge base is hard to come by. Automation is a critical step in being able to increase that accuracy, because it starts to become predictable. But it's also a point that it can be carried out and created by your business process experts today. As we say, you've seen the snippet of the video. People in your organization know how to go and create a sales order already. They're going to do exactly the same tomorrow, but the output is they're going to be a test script off the back of it that you can go and reuse every single time. And yeah, it doesn't have to be hard. I've said it many times, probably said it in the presentations a couple of weeks ago. There isn't a magic red button. And ultimately, yes, it is like everything. There is some time, there is some effort to get to that, that point of having 85, 95% automation. You've got all the different functions and features covered from a testing point of view. And the next time there's an update, the next time there's a patch, it doesn't need to be difficult. I think that's the bottom line. And ultimately, yeah, I think it's, that's the sort of really the road to making those updates not as nasty as they may have used to have been, and a little bit nicer in the future, which takes us into some questions. If we've seen any come through in the last, just over 30 minutes.
Yeah, looks like we have a couple in here. Probably one from earlier, but the first one is, would it help with version 10 upgrades?
I suppose, do you want to do that? Or I suppose the simple answer is yes.
Yeah, no, it's good. I think we've spoken to a few people, but yeah, we can definitely help with version 10 upgrades. The most success we see is with UAT, helping those users get involved. And then obviously is the automation is huge for an upgrade like that. If you go into a version upgrade, it's running that automation to see exactly what's new in version 10 and where the differences are. And it's a good starting point there. So yeah, the combination of UAT and the automated regression would be a big help with version upgrades, especially for 10 or 11 and down the road in the future.
Yeah, and often that it's that starting point of, we don't know where to start, or we've got some, and there's key business processes that will need to be documented and captured as part of building out any testing. So in essence, people carrying out that process and it automatically documenting and capturing it. We've got a number of case studies that people save 60% of their time from what they used to spend on doing things like that. So yes, I think is the answer ultimately.
Yeah, and that's a good good segue into the next one, which is just how easy is it to get up and running with capturing the business processes, or I guess how much time does it take? It looks like they're looking to figure out. You want to take that one, Carl? Or?
Yeah, can do. Yeah. Well, I think it's touched on it with, it's truly codeless in that point. So your business process experts today can go and capture and create a test script. They can go and perform user acceptance testing. So in getting up to speed with UAT, we normally say a couple of hours. People can do it quicker. And why is it so? Why do we say a couple of hours? So in essence, through our software, you'd open up and go and run XA, and then the individual would go and complete, like creating a purchase order in the same way they do today, and it's capturing it at the same time. So that's why the training is limited, is next to nothing, because they already know how to go and create that raising of a purchase order. The output is it's capturing it all, and then we'll go and create the test scripts from that point going forward. So yeah, literally a couple of hours talking with the UAT, so user acceptance testing, that manual testing. In fairness, automation does take a little bit longer, and it's really the strategy of how and why you build it in the way that you'd build it. Again, it's all about minimizing future effort, is why we suggest to build the testing in the way that we suggest it.
Nice. And then there's one more it seems to be a little bit more technical, but around the green screen. So I haven't seen anything handle green screen before, in particular the field location moving. How does it do it? How does it work?
Oh, do you want me to pick that one up?
Yeah,
I was just about to say, hey, we've got a technical person on the call this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Tim.
So there's a technology in the automation that we call user interface annotation, but really it's a little bit of AI, if you like, whereby the automation analyzes the screen, associates labels with fields and so on, and data types and all that kind of stuff. Green screen being kind of massively more simple than a web application, but works the same for everything. And when the test executes, it compares with what it learnt when that piece of automation was created, compares that with the way that the application is now, and can highlight those differences. So for green screen, it is pretty straightforward and simple, but will tell you if stuff has moved, if it's a different size, if it's disappeared, if something new has appeared. If you take something like a web application, a lot more complicated in the terms of different controls and things, but it can tell you if drop-down lists have changed. It can tell you, where things are again and again, if things have been added, removed, or data within them has changed. So it's that user interface annotation. I can't tell you any more because it's patented technology.
Thanks, Tim.
If we told you any more, we'd have to
shoot you. Yes.
And we did have another one come into for base XA processes. Do you have a base test setup that we can start with and then add our custom processes?
The very quick answer is no, but so I mean, if we're in the M4 M3 environment, CloudSuite, yes, we have some base processes. But I'm actually with Ross, who's the product manager, tomorrow, around, there's a few things on the agenda. One of those is understanding some of those base tests, those base setups, so that we can have some almost, where do you start? Okay, we've got these core business processes that become more out of the box. Typically there'll be some subtle changes between different versions, different systems, but those core business processes will be very, very similar. So yeah, the answer is no, not today. Yes, we have with with CloudSuite. And yeah, it just happens I've got a session with Ross tomorrow, and one of those is exactly that. You know, how can we make things easier and simpler for the user base, and some of that is that there's some base elements, you know, I say out of the box. Hopefully that answered the question. So watch this space.
Nice. And that's it for questions. So we can wrap it up.
Yeah, if there's any more coming in, tis lit up. No, there's a few there, I think. Yeah, no, thanks. I think thank you for everybody's time again. And if you saw it again, hopefully you took something else away from it. Yeah, thank you for everybody's time and effort. And yeah, as we said at the start, we'll be looking to you know, share the recording anyway with everybody that's registered. And yeah, hopefully speak to and see some of you again soon.
Indeed. Carl and John, thank you very much for the presentation today.
No worries. Yeah, thanks for jumping
thanks
on
for
board and
everyone
having a
attending.
technical bit there. Cheers.
Yes,
Thank
indeed.
you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks guys. Take care.
Thanks, guys.